The most common question I get when it comes to weaving on a loom is take a wild guess. The most common question I get is, can I warp with fill in the blank? For instance, can I warp with wire? Can I warp with ribbon? Can I warp with material? Like, I'm always being asked, what can I work with, Jules, if I am making projects on a bead weaving loom? And I always come back with, well, if it ain't moving, it's fair game. And so that kind of like leads to a wide variety of materials that you can use. And so welcome to the channel. I'm Juliana. A lot of people call me Jules, and you're more than welcome to join in and call me that. I'm the inventor of the Jewel Loom bead loom right here. Very popular. And when I refer to the word warp, W-A-R-P, I'm talking about these guys. All right. The warps go from the top of your loom to the bottom and then back up again. So we refer to it as the foundation of whatever you might be making. So whether it's a beaded bracelet, some fun and funky earrings, or a woven piece, the warp threads are your foundation. They're like the basis of your story. What's going to hold my story? Is it going to be something really strong? Is it whimsical? Is it flexible? Is it sassy? Like real leather? Real leather cord is really fun to warp with, but there's a whole thing about that. And I'm just so excited and honored to have you here. And well, gosh, not even a couple of months ago, but just a wee bit ago, I was at the Tucson Gym Show, and my lovely, precious, sweet, gorgeous friend, who is also an amazing jewelry designer, came up to me, and we were so excited that we found each other. And well, I'll just tell you who it is. The beautiful, amazing, talented Deb Floros is here with me today. We didn't talk, but yet we're matching. So we have, in honor of you, I wore the funky earrings that I got inspired to make. And you're like, you've got like all these colors, and I'm like, in my burgundy. So good job on us for matching.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi.
It is really, I think there's two questions that are quite common. And the one being, can I warp with this? What can I warp with? And it's a lot. And then the other one too, of course, which we'll have to play with sometime, is, how do I finish my piece? Right. I would say those are the top two questions, Yeah. How do I finish? And what am I warping with? And I get that all the time. And it was really cute the way that you even presented it, because you were like, I have these boxes and they're full of stuff. And do you think? And I was like, we have to take this to the Jewel Loom community to educate them and let them know, hey. And so my thing during this time together is that when you pull out something and talk about whether or not we can bead with it or warp with it, I want to refer to some of the looms and their grids. And so if you're saying, well, Jules, what is a grid? I hardly know what a warp is. Okay, these are the grids, right? And so periodically, while Deb is showcasing some of her items, I'm going to swoop in with one of the looms and talk about the grid and what would work best. So without further ado, my friend, what you got?
Well, so I am still a beginner in the whole world of weaving. I mean, your looms are what introduced me to the whole concept. And I was always envious of people that had these beautiful woven pieces. And so I kind of started my journey with more of the like textile things, like, you know, and like the like this is sari silk, and this is like some chenille
Ooh.
yarn.
Ooh.
And so I associated that with like hemp cord. So my experience is with hemp cord, but hemp cord on the wood looms, not on the blue looms.
Okay.
So that's my main kind of point of reference. But I know from watching, you know, watching you and watching everybody else that works with the looms that typically, if you're working with the blue loom, you're working with the Fireline or Wildfire or some equivalent of that. I do have a question though when it comes to the, you know, the thread that we all, you know, associate with the blue looms.
Okay.
Can you use this on one of the wood looms?
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, totally 100%. Yeah. Yeah. So I 9.9 times out of 10 am using Wildfire, Beadalon's Wildfire in one way, shape, or the other. Like if they're not my warps, I use them for my wefts, WEFTS. And basically, you know, let me just say, if somebody uses that word, it also is your weave, right? So it's the going back and forth. But yeah, so you can use the Wildfire on any one of your looms that I manufacture with my name on it. I mean, you can even, if you wanted to, use it on Nilay's Silver Silk loom.
Okay.
And yeah, so yeah, definitely. Wildfire is, in my humble opinion, the best. And so I've been using it like for neons. And prior to that, the only reason I didn't use it because I didn't know about it. So yeah, most definitely. And I think for a little clarification with that, okay, so on your jewel loom, on your original jewel loom and your baby loom, these are plastic looms. These are flexible plastic, not bendable. I can't say that enough. And they have what I refer to as, I'm just going to come up a little closer, the beading grid up here, and they have these grooves, right? So they're very durable. The groove is, it was made for Wildfire. Okay. So back in the day when we were just starting off, we were using Wildfire for our warps and our wefts, also known as the weaving part. We were sewing on clasps, end of day, right? The grid on the, I'll just bring this big guy in. Wait, okay, the grid on the large Wisdom Warrior. All right, so let's just
That's a lot of wisdom.
Hey, girlfriend, the book is in process. If you see those tiny, 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 tiny little tiny grooves, all right, so those are the grooves on the Wisdom Warrior bead loom line. They're very tiny and they're made out of wood. They love Wildfire. They love Wildfire. And they fit in there just beautifully, and they make exceptional warp threads. So, you know, would you necessarily want to use the Silver Silk loom with the Wildfire for your warps? You can, but it was really designed to accommodate Silver Silk chain. And so let me just tell my people who don't know what that is. This is Silver Silk chain. This is our lovely friend, Nilay's company, and he produces Silver Silk chain. Look how gorgeous. I know you have some too. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the,
that looks like maybe pipe chain. Is
yeah,
that pipe chain?
I had it before we came on and I lost it. So, you know, these looms that have the bigger grooves were really intended to accommodate thicker material.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, knock your socks off, use wildfire on them. It's okay. But there's other looms that were kind of made for that,
Yeah.
but not a deal breaker. So yeah,
Right.
it's all
That's
good.
why I asked, because I associate that one in particular. So that was where I think I did this project
Okay.
on that loom, and I think I did this one as well.
Okay.
And I was thinking, in my beginner brain, like, oh, the wider the space, the wider the material, and because silver silk is pretty wide.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I didn't think that I would ever go that path, but I started to think about, well, could you? And is that the best thing? I probably still wouldn't do that, but it sounds like
You could.
you can do it if you really want to, and who knows what
Yeah.
it might, produce.
Yeah. And the way that I design the looms, like with the original Jewel loom, part of the patent, are the buttons, right? Because it eliminated all of the waste in beading, because when, instead of going around and around a loom, you're tying off.
Yeah.
So when I'm designing these looms, I'm thinking about, well, what's going to happen on this loom? What's going to be birthed? What kind of a story is somebody going to want to tell? And so we design it to accommodate the knotting and the application. And so, you would just have to, you'd have to tie off on one of the teeth, and then your groove, let's see, this groove would probably accommodate 2 11-ohs, maybe 3. So you're not going to have like the same spacing, but again,
Yeah.
it's doable. I don't want you to feel like, oh, I invested in this loom and I can only do silver silk. I want you to play around, and to your point, go ahead and try the wildfire. I think you can do it. I know you can do it.
Okay. All right. So then, along the same vein, so a lot of people that use wildfire or fireline may use the Toho 1G product. It's a slightly different manufacturer of a thread. So seed beaters use these interchangeably, but some people prefer a 1G. So if someone had 1G, could they use 1G for blue looms and or other looms?
Yeah. First of all, Toho girl forever. Love Toho. Can't get enough of Toho. And the 1G is like, it's delish, right? You could absolutely warp with it on the blue looms. And then, as mentioned before, let me bring in the smaller Wisdom Warrior, because she's not so large. On those grids, that would be fine. What I find with the 1G, though, so I love the wildfire because the beetle on wildfire is strong. It's very strong.
And it's grippy. It's grippy.
Grippy. It's such a great way to describe that. And so when you're making, chunky monkey gorgeous bracelets that have like a tremendous amount of glass on them, you want that base with your seed beads to be really strong and sturdy. So I'm going to use 1G mostly in my weaving, but I'm not going to put a big X over it for warping. Like, you can definitely do that. It might even be a nice baby jewel loom product, because you don't typically use as much as you would on,
Yeah.
And it's just flowy. It's very 1G is smooth.
It's very smooth.
It's dancy.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Here's the thing that you have to remember about warps. Like, if I show you this bracelet right now, you don't see the warps.
No.
So I would say 9.9 times out of 10, your warps they disappear. Like maybe on your wall hangings, on your fiber art, you might get a little bit more of a glimpse of your warps. So Super G is more Super G. 1G is more costly, right? It is definitely more costly. And so I would just tend to use it for my wefts when when I'm weaving in my bead. But the answer is yes, you could use it. I've not used it on like Nile's loom or Eileen's loom or the new rooted loom, all those big grid looms. I've not, and I honestly, I don't know that I'd make that choice to do that.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't either.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. So Nymo, I would say the same answer would probably be for like Nymo, because it's kind of the beadsmith equivalent of 1G in my humble opinion.
I started with Nymo. Well, actually, I take that back. Back in the day, 30 some years ago with Aline, we were warping and weft everything with fishing line. We were going to we were using fishing tackle line to create with. And then, we had Nymo. And so that's actually where, the two materials that I mostly was using like 30 some years ago. In fact, I wonder if this is fishing line. I'm not 100% sure. Some of them, I'll have to find one of my bracelets because I know this one looks like the warps are Nymo. And this is like, I don't know, this could be 30, 20, at least 25 years old. So Nymo's pretty rare. Like it's a strong material, but yeah, Wildfire hands down.
Okay. I always think of Fireline for seed beading work, but I think Wildfire actually would be my choice for the warping on the blue looms. That would be my choice. Yeah. Because it is so grippy.
Yeah, and they have that ultra fine now, so you could play around with the ultra fine to see like how you feel with that when you're doing like your looping work. That's what I love with the 1G or like the Nymo. Like it's just it's a little more flexible. But again, I'm such a Wildfire fan, so
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, we all have our favorite things.
We do. We do.
Okay. Let's go in a different direction, because this is so I am a big macrame girl.
Okay.
And I love the micro macrame. So I think we did this project. Yes. And this is all macrame on, and we did it on a loom.
So
and good. This is all that tiny waxed poly kind of cording. And our friends at Hemtique actually just introduced some poly cording in very small sizes.
Okay.
But I've got this is like a waxed multicolor cording.
Yeah.
I love this stuff for macrame. But tell me, like, is this good for warping, and with what kinds of looms?
Yeah. So, I mean, Hemtique is hands down, like, I love them. Clara's amazing, and they're a family-owned business, and they're here in California, closer to San Diego, I believe. And so their products that they have are sustainable, and I love all of that. I love all of that. So I feel with the plastic looms that if I'm going to try something, try it on the Jewel Loom or the baby Jewel Loom first to see like, how it works. I don't have any questions as far as like the Hemtique product lines go. The 0.5 regular Hemtique cord, it is a beautiful match. Let me bring in the pocket loom. So the pocket moon loom that we introduced in November of last year, she's got the beading grid, right? Yeah. And then she has some bigger teeth. So, like the 0.5 mil cord, hemp cord would be great. It loves that little groove. The 1 is a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
When you talk about those waxed situations, they're
very
lovely. Yeah, they're lovely. I just am wondering, obviously all day. Like I mean, the Jewel Loom is suited for just like so many things. I've not tried that wax on the wood. I'm really careful with my wood looms. Really careful. Because just because it'll fit in the groove, I'm always cautious, like even with the wire. Like if you did, Laura Menya comes to mind with her gorgeous crochet. I think she uses 28 gauge maybe. But I'm always concerned with the bead grids, and so I would always say, like, if it's artistic wire, which is my favorite wire, by the way,
Mhm.
I would say the thinner the better. So like a 28, a 30, even a 32. But the wax, I would say I'm feeling like no problem on the bigger grids.
Yeah, agree.
I'm just not knowing right now whether or not it's going to produce any type of weird sticky stuff in the bead grid, in the wood bead grid.
Yeah, I feel like
Try that.
so the hemp teak, the new hemp teak, so they came out with, I think, 3 new sizes. So I've used their larger sizes. I think this was done with hemp teak, probably this one too.
Yeah.
And this, when I saw this little thin, this is
nice.
0.45 millimeter.
Okay.
It's tiny.
Yeah.
And this isn't waxy. So like this is a waxed.
Yeah.
This is not. So
Yeah.
I feel like this would actually be.
I think it'd be gorgeous on the wood looms with the bead grid. I think that would be very, very interesting to warp with on the bead grid on these on the looms that have them. So all the Wisdom Warrior Mini, Wisdom Warrior, the earring looms, which are Danielle's like the co-parent.
Yeah. Yes.
The large Wisdom Warrior, the small Wisdom Warrior, the micro, and then the earring. The pocket loom has the beading grid. The original Moon loom has a little bit, her grid could be considered a beading grid, but it's a little bit different. It's not as tight. But I think that any of the looms that have this really tiny,
yeah.
I mean, I'm just like glancing over at my big girl. Oy. And I'm just thinking, that might really be cool.
It could work.
Yeah. What is the product called?
So it is waxed, but I say that when I compare the wax on this, this is a less expensive. I don't even know the brand of this. This is, you can see how shiny this is, but this is so hemp teak, waxed, bonded, and round thread. It's multi-purpose and non-fraying. That's the
on that.
And I can pull out in a second. Yeah. There are a couple additional sizes that they released as well, and they're all sort of in this smaller vein.
Yeah, I like that.
Poly versus hemp.
Yeah.
But this does not feel waxy. Like it feels coated, but it doesn't feel waxy.
Yeah, then I'm all in. I'm definitely all in. And Carmen, I will. And Carmen Cruz says, I'm a beginner and I appreciate all this great information. I have bought some hemp and other materials, but was not sure where and how to use it. So thank you, Carmen, for letting us know that this is good for you, because that's why we're here. Eileen Hull's loom that I did for her, she's got, that similar moon goddess grid.
Yeah.
So I bet she would love that as well for her, for her, she does the spines to her journal dies. I know. She's so crazy. She's so cool.
She's so
Yeah.
talented.
I bet she would really love that. So we'll have to make sure. By the way, myself and Eileen and Anne from Bella Craft, we're all going to be at the Chicago show in May for H&H. I don't know if you're going or not, but anyone
I'm
who's
not
attending, look for Bella Craft because we will be there.
I'm not going, but I will be virtually representing Jesse James Beads
Oh
at
my
the
God.
event.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
doing a little bit of an instruction with something that they're sharing with the Bella Craft folks. So I'm excited about that.
Okay, right on. I love that. That's so good. So good. So yeah, so I'm all in.
Okay. All right. Then here's some other products, very similar products. Beadalon Belon,
Yeah.
and then Beadsmith Eslon.
Yeah.
Both nylon cords. I don't think they're waxed. I don't see anything about waxed, but they're a little bit bigger than what we just looked at. I'm trying to see what the size is on the cording, but I know a lot of people work with Eslon for knotting, and I've used it for macrame, some knotting too. I would think this would work, but not sure which loom would be best for this kind of a product.
Yeah, I think that those two, because I'm almost 100% sure that years ago when I was on JTV with the Jewel Loom, that the Eslon was an upsell, and I'm almost sure So yeah, I definitely, again, I all day long on the Jewel Looms, the original blue Jewel Looms, baby loom, no problem at all.
Okay.
I would say Eileen's loom, absolutely. I would say it depends on the size because, again, 0.5 hemp cord lays into the beading grid on the Wisdom Warrior looms beautifully. 1 millimeter, you can work with that, but it sits on the grid.
Okay.
It sits. Yeah. See this one? Yeah. This is 0.5. This is hemp teak, hemp cord. And you can see that it fits into the groove. So if I want to use, I guess I don't have a 1 millimeter on the loom anywhere. It'll like sit on the grooves, even on the jewelry.
It doesn't nestle in necessarily.
Right.
Okay.
So, you've got these little dips, right? You have the little grooves. And so if the product won't, like Wildfire obviously lays down in there beautifully, 0.5 lays down in there beautifully, but excuse me, anything over that is going to lay on top of the grooves.
Does that if it's laying, does that present any problems with like things shifting around, or
you just have to be more conscious of the fact that they're just laying, but it's never derailed me from creating that way. So for instance, I've made a piece where the warp threads were out of denim.
denim?
Yeah. So you just take your old Levi's, right? You just take your old Levi's, and then what you do is you're going to cut strips as long as you can go. My little legs are short, so you're not going to get, you're not going to have like yards with my legs. But
mine either.
Yeah, but you can definitely warp with like a long, and it just lays on there. And so it does present for a very creative experience because you're also like trying to get your beads but it's beautiful, right? When it's all done. And
I'm
so
thinking that shouldn't be your first project on a loom. I'm just saying that probably should not be your very first attempt. Although they would get an award for something like that, like some kind of an award.
Yeah. And it, yeah. And you, yeah. What is it? Celia says, are you sure you're not running around trying to start a new trend with those? Yeah. Well, let me just say, I am on my way to my own very pair of Daisy Dukes. So I better get my squats.
Better start working out.
Well, I was also just thinking, like, I don't know if you remembered my old company, Jewel Craft, but we had this gorgeous beaded fringe. And I was just, I have some. So I was thinking, oh, I could sew some onto here. I'd be like quite the thing.
You would, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Those will be my Vegas Daisy Dukes.
Oh, my Lord.
But yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to set the fabric aside for a minute because I have so many questions related to fabric. But staying on like cording and thread, I love this product for a lot of different things. I'm sure a lot of people have it. The silk.
Oh, so yeah. Yeah.
It's the Griffin silk has a needle attached, which you could cut off. It comes in so many sizes, which I think is confusing to people. But it's, you know, generally used for knotting pearls.
Yep.
I've used it for knotting any, you know, other beads. I've used it for macrame.
Yeah.
But I've never used it on a loom. And I thought, gosh, there's some lovely silk colors out there that would be pretty.
Yeah.
What about warping with the silk?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I would just go back to that same point of like, you know, because I also look at price point when I'm thinking about my warps,
Yes.
you know, and so Beadalon's Wildfire just being such an exceptional product at a great price for what you're getting. And you know that you're for the most case, you're covering it up, right? So when you have that silk product, it's so beautiful. And I'm assuming it's a little bit higher of a price point. Maybe not too bad. I think they make it. Are they making it here now, or do they still make it overseas? I don't know.
I'm not know.
Sure, but
I feel like it's one of those products that unless you're pearl knotting, it's kind of like people don't know about it, or they have some and they don't know what to do with it because it's just been stuffed in a drawer. And truth be told, I have a lot of it that I've just, you know, accumulated over the years. I did used to knot with the very larger sizes of it, but like some of this, like the number 3 is super tiny. I mean, it's a
nice
tiny little thread.
You know, I'm thinking that would be gorgeous, like for obviously the pearls and then like the check glass or Swarovski crystals. So like if I were doing a ring, I would, you know, warp with a coordinating wildfire color if possible. And then I would use that silk with my pearls and my crystals.
Yeah.
And now I need to make that ring because that sounds really pretty.
We're getting all kinds of ideas here while we're talking about it.
I like the idea, even if I'm the only one knowing it, but if you're making jewelry for sale, I think this would be a good point. It's like you're using, you know, how can I say this? Like you don't drive around in a Mercedes with Volkswagen car seats, right? And there's nothing wrong with that if you do. No. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I'm just trying to give you an analogy, right? So like if I'm making a gorgeous ring and I'm using my top quality, you know, Japanese seed beads, and I'm using, you know, gorgeous pearls and Swarovski crystals. I want to make sure that my warps and my wefts are a material that's going to, you know, complement that whole presentation.
Natural silk.
Look at
naturals.
that. Oh, that's jewel blue too. So that, oh my God.
That's why I pulled this out. So I have all colors. I'm like, oh my God, this is jewel.
That is to die for. That is to die for. Yeah. Yeah. Carmen
So
wants a tutorial on the ring. So we better write down all these things.
better get these ideas written down.
Yeah. But I think that, that whole line, I absolutely on the original blue looms, the baby and the original jewel loom. And then I think it makes sense with the Wisdom Warrior looms because they have the beading grids. You could use it with the pocket loom. You could use it with Eileen's loom for sure. She might enjoy that. Is she upside down? Yeah, because like I said, her little grids are.
Yeah.
So yeah.
If you had a bigger, I don't know, like it's not a gauge, but like a bigger size of the silk,
yeah,
then that would probably be better in that loom or in the maybe even in the silver silk loom.
Yeah, or yeah, can you imagine somehow warping that along with silver silk chain side by side? That would be to die for. Yeah.
See how that Let's see how that might look.
Yeah.
Now this is a smaller cord, but I mean, I don't know. I mean,
you'd have to put it up there, like maybe the silver silk is on the edges on the far left and far right, and then the silk is in the middle, and you could even pre-string the beads onto the silk and have them floating.
Yeah.
So that you can still show off the silk, and maybe after you put one bead on, do like a little macrame. I don't know. You could just like have more fun than humans are allowed to have with that.
And if you use a clear crystal or a clear glass bead, the color of the thread would show through.
Yeah.
Kind of fun.
I'm going to definitely say that whole silkness, that whole world needs to be married to, like the same quality glass, pearl, Swarovski, check glasses, even gorge. So something on the same level to make it tell a really complete story with the same. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to possibly take up a mission to use some of my silk.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I have other questions. So we've talked about hemp.
Yeah.
And I love hemtique. I've got a ton of hemtique, but I wanted to show this because I'm sure some people don't know about hemtique, or maybe don't have access to it as easily. And maybe they're going to the craft store and they're seeing this kind of a product on a card.
Yeah.
You get a bunch of colors sometimes together. They also, I think, card the naturals in different sizes. So some of their products have different sizes, and then some of them just have different colors.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say what's better here, but I'm assuming that this cord is also very usable under all the other situations that like a hemtique would be. Right.
Yeah. And I've seen those, and I've had to pick them up on, cases where I just had to run to Michael's or Hobby Lobby and, grab something. So, yeah, I think, it all comes down to like, is it important to you? Do you want to be working with a sustainable product? Or, so yeah, I think you can go either way, but I'm always going to be behind, the mom and pops.
Yeah. And it's trust. I mean, I feel like it's a quality, it's a better quality.
Oh, it's so good.
I've used both, but I prefer the hemtique product if I can get my hands on it. So
yeah. And this is hemtique on my earrings, and so I'm I'm not super allergy prone, but I would want something close to my face that I knew where it had been. So I do know the way hemtique produces their product. So
yeah. Well,
And
if people, this would be a good practice. Like
it
if
would
you
be
have this, practice with it,
yes.
right?
Yes. And I
And then you
always
go get a
yeah.
bunch of hemtique, like load up on the hemtique after you
Yeah, and
practice.
Hermie has a great comment. She's saying that the hemtique is softer, right, and stronger, and it's true
Yeah.
because I've noticed that what's at the mass level is a little bit more rough. But if in my one video where I talk about which loom to start with, because like if you've not loomed and you are just like, whoa, you know,
Whoa.
I'm not ready to invest in, the large wisdom warrior right now, but man, this looks like a fun time. I say start off with, the baby jewel loom because the price point is right under $10. Pick yourself up some of that cord at, one of the mass shops or your local independent, whatever, and you're not going to waste. You're not going to have a waste. You can warp with the cord and you can and weave with it to, get your,
Get
you
your
know,
bearings.
yeah, get your bearings just to try it out. And you're not like into trying something new. You're not in $100, right? You're in $20.
And sometimes when you make your way around these craft stores, you can go and you'll find these like clearance things. And so you might find something like this on clearance and you just put that in your little bag and carry it on out and use it to practice. And and then you can get really good. And then you can buy hemtique in all the colors and all the sizes.
Yeah. And yeah. And yeah. Totally. Get your baby loom and some, yeah.
I'll let you answer this question before I go on.
Carmen says, I haven't used my goddess yet. How much should I use on it? Can you show the hemp again? Oh, how much hemp cord would you or cord in general? I mean, it just depends on what you are using, what you're making. I mean, you could end up using many yards to go all the way across. 17 inches, 17 inches long, 8 over. I mean, I know I've done it before and I'm sure I wrote it down somewhere. It's probably going to be several yards worth of cord. I could take some yarn later, Carmen, and like just faux warp my loom real quick and I can let you know. If that's your question.
Okay, this is a weird one. But I used this for my weaving, so my wefting.
Okay.
This is like a twine, like a really cute twine.
Oh, that's so funny. You have that. Okay.
It's like a tiny yarn kind of. And I did a really funky bracelet. In fact, I'm not even sure where that bracelet is. I thought I didn't bring that in tonight, but I used a black, this is purple and white, but I used a black and white and I used it on hemp. But my opinion is this probably wouldn't make a good warp, but you tell me, do you think it could be a warp?
So it's really funny. And this is the honest truth. Okay. So and we did not talk. We did not.
No.
From my lips to God's ears, we did not talk.
We did not. We did not.
No. So, back during Christmas time, I was standing in line at TJ Maxx, and this was, how people pick stuff up and then they decide they don't want it.
Impulse purchases.
It's in the impulse area. Like, get me through this line.
This.
Don't look. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be like so amazing. And it was like, I don't know, $7.99. And I got it with the intention of thinking that I was going to make coasters.
Oh, that would be cool.
I warped with it. And then I used it as my weaving for the boo-boo loom on the boo-boo loom. And I took it off and the flipping thing
fell apart.
It twisted. because it's twisty. It's
Oh.
twisty. So I was going to talk about this. So I don't know if that's the same experience on that smaller one, but boy, this did not go well for me. And I was
that is fantastic. Like that makes my heart sing. I think I had it was not this exact same one, but I had a black and white. I wish I knew where that piece was. And
yeah,
so I warped with hemp, and then I did this, and then I got to about the center of the bracelet, and then I had this like silvery thread stuff, and I did a little in the center, and then I started again with the black and white. So it's cool, but I found it hard from a tension standpoint to get it right, because it's just kind of loosey goosey.
yeah.
You know, it's like air. There's nothing to it.
Yours is like air, and this one is like
that's like a brick.
Yeah, like a brick, and it's twisting, and it's really great for wrapping gifts. But I would just say, I don't know what I would say, because I got so bummed that I didn't go back and try to warp again and then use something else as the wefts, because that might have been stinking cool. And so I do have some red sorry ribbon, and I might be brave enough to warp again with this and then go back and use the weaving with the sorry ribbon and see what happens. But, you know, sometimes that's how come I always say, if it ain't moving, it's fair game. If you don't have to put it down. So sometimes I think that this is a perfect example of where I was like, why not? Like, it's staring at me. It's a great price. It's really pretty. I think I want to do this. And I had a fail, but I didn't go back and try again. So I think for giggles, I will try again and let everybody know how it goes, because it really is a beautiful, and in this case, the warp would present in the project, especially on a coaster, and it would be gorgeous. So I will try it. I'll try it again. I'll take one for the team and try it again.
Okay. Well, that is very cool, because that's huge and it's really cool.
Yeah.
That kind of makes me think. So like when I've been collecting all this stuff, because I'm embarrassed to show, and I'm not going to, the bags of stuff that I have. I have a lot of stuff I've been collecting. And what my thought process is, well, if I can't warp with it, I can weft with it, and I can accent with it, and I can do all these fun things. And so I have a lot of stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, well, if I can't warp with it, I can definitely use it. You know, I've seen all of your pieces that have all of the fabric and the beads and the fun accents. So my thought was, this and probably several other things like it are probably not good for warping, but this is a piece of fairy silk, and it's been wrapped.
Yeah.
It's been wrapped up, so it needs a little training, but it's a black piece of fairy silk. Fairy silk is so lovely. It can be a plain color. It can be multicolored. And it's got the thread it's sewn on the outside along both edges. And it goes like down to a point where it's thin at the end. That's typically how a fairy silk would work. Mm-hmm. This is actually not silk. This is like a faux fairy silk, but I do have fairy silk too. And this is a fun material to work with for, designing jewelry, but I don't know that you could actually warp with it.
Does it have an opening? Can you put anything in it, or is it? No. Okay. So yeah, I wouldn't waste it. It's fabulous. So I would want to show it off. And so, like when I used, these pieces on here, like this is a really nice sari ribbon. Like some silk saris are better than others. And this is a higher end, more delicious one. But what I'm seeing with that is, you remember the other night, or in the video on the rooted loom where I took the fibers and then I pinched them so that they would, they would be fluffy and sticking out. I could see that with the fairy silk. And
Yeah.
boy, I wish I had some because that would just be really pretty.
Yeah.
Really pretty. So I
So
would use it for your wefts.
so while you're sharing that, how do you feel about yarn? And there's
Oh,
so many kinds of yarn, like some yarn that's super chunky and some yarn that's really thin. Then the yarn that we used for this project I did for you that
yeah.
has all the little squiggly things hanging out. Like,
All the fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many different kinds of yarn, but what is the general guidance on yarn?
Yeah. I mean, the general guidance is that if there's an estate sale sign in your neighborhood, you go. You go because chances are somebody's been stashing yarn their whole life. Um, yeah, I mean, the yarn is like perfect for warping because that's what this is. This is yarn that I warp the rooted loom with.
Hmm.
And I'll make sure that that video is tagged in here somewhere. So this is just, basic yarn, nothing fancy or schmancy. But yeah, all day long, I would just have a bag, which I do, full of yarn, you know. And so in the next breath, what I would say is that I tend to use that basic plain yarn in
Like
different
yarn.
yarny yarn.
Like
Um,
good old fashioned yarn before they made it fancy.
estate sale, yeah. And then, like I've told the story so many times about, this was at a bougie place in Ojai, the skein. And when I walked in, it was like almost $50 for that thing. And it's gorgeous though. I mean, it's
It's
like
beautiful.
beyond. And so I'm going to use that for my wefts. I'm not going to hide it.
Right, right.
And it costs a lot, but you could, yeah, just get
So
a collection of yarn.
I'm thinking like you get the plain yarn and you do your warps, but then you get all the fun yarn and the beautiful rich yarn
Fibers.
and the fancy yarn and do all of your weaving with that. And you've got
Yeah.
this beautiful soft piece. This was like a chenille yarn that I
Was that
had.
expensive?
No, this
Oh,
was
okay.
like yard sale yarn. Like it was in a bag of like just stuff,
Wow.
and I used some hemp, so just some brown hemp, and then
Cool.
I added some lace. This is like stretchy lace in
Ooh,
there.
yeah, that's so cool.
And this is so
So cool.
soft and cozy. And so, like, that's what I'm thinking. But I didn't really think that you could work with it. So now I'm super excited. Danielle, bougie yarn. Yes.
We need t-shirts. T-shirts.
Yes. Okay. So the next thing you touched on this a little bit. I've done weaving with it, and that's sari silk.
Yeah.
And I am a sari girl to my core.
Yeah, totally.
So, but
too.
can you warp with it?
Oh yeah, these are warp. This is the warp. What happens, you have to be really careful when you're warping with it because it can be frail, and so then it will tear.
Yeah.
So when I'm warping with the denim or the sari ribbon, anything of that type of texture, I'll leave the metal rod into the jewel loom so that because sometimes it'll stretch. Like I even say that with a leather cord, sometimes that leather cord will stretch. And if you take your rod out, you'll be like flat lines, on your loom. So definitely can use. In fact, one of the projects in the book is warping with sari ribbon, using it also in some of the weaving and adding some beads in. So yeah. And even so the sari ribbon is so precious and it's so like, what's the word, evasive, like it's not harsh or anything.
Yeah.
You can even like lay that on your Wisdom Warrior looms, and I would be fine with that. And definitely on all your big teeth girls, like your big grids.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah,
and I think it would be easy. It would be easier on those big teeth for a beginner.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I also, I have some sari yarn. Have you seen that where people make sari into yarn?
Yes. And the
I
stars.
would not want to waste it. I would not want to waste it as a warp. I would want to use it for weaving, but that's a beautiful, like, bougie yarn to use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
You mentioned leather.
Yeah, a few times.
That scares me, but I know that it's similar to, like, so a lot of people have made those wrap bracelets. I'm thinking it's very similar to the wrap bracelets with leather. Tell me about how you can work with leather.
Yeah, I mean, with the leather, again, if you're using it as a warp on the original Jewel Loom, I would leave the rod in the loom because it can stretch. If it's faux leather, it doesn't stretch like real leather.
Yeah.
And the other thing when you're warping with real leather is that you have to be so careful because, again, it's another product that will, I mean, it's fragile, so it could break.
It could tear. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we
get nicked or something, gouged.
Yeah. I want to show you. I should have grabbed this, but let me see if I can find it really quick. One of our very, very first Creative Soul projects. Of course, it's hiding right now.
You can never find it when you want it.
Right? My gosh. It was the red. Joan knows which one I'm talking about. But
maybe she knows where it is.
Maybe she knows. These boxes were organized at one time. Of course, I don't have it. Let me see. I don't think that's not leather. This might be leather. But yeah, you definitely have to be careful when you're warping, with the leather. And so this one.
Ooh, I love that one. I remember that one.
I love these darn beads so much. Oh,
so beautiful. God, I love that.
You just need to be careful when you're going back and forth and you're warping with the weather. It's definitely with the weather.
That's hard to say.
Weather, yeah. But and even on the original Jewel Loom, so I'm a big fan of 1 millimeter everything, right? Like I love 1 millimeter hemp cord. I love 1.5, 2 millimeter leather. So those sizes are going to sit on top of the grooves. They're going to sit on top of the Jewel Loom, baby loom grooves. They're going to sit on top of the Wisdom Warrior looms. They're going to nestle into the Silver Silk loom, the Rudin loom. But I like faux leather as well because it's cheaper.
And sometimes it looks really good. I mean, sometimes you can't have it.
Yeah. And some people, they don't want the real thing. So faux leather is absolutely fine. And you can usually find it for, a great thing. Again, so yeah, it's, I don't know. Here's an example of warping with wire. It's kind of hard to tell, but these are all wired warps in this project.
Oh, wired, like craft wire, artistic wire. That's on my list too.
Yeah, artistic wire. Yeah, see, we think alike. Warping with wire on the original Jewel Loom is like hands down one of my most favorite things because it's ridiculous how cool it is. It's just,
You mentioned certain gauges you prefer. What would you prefer to warp with? What's your preferred?
Right. So to just let everyone know, the lower the number in wire, so like 10 gauge is what my mom used way back in the day to make all those human forms. Like it is so heavy, 10 gauge, 12
Big
gauge. It's
wire.
super, super thick, right? So the lower the number, the thicker the wire, the higher the number, the thinner. So like our Laura, who does crocheting with wire, I think she's in that 28 gauge to 32. So
Like
for
this is a 22 right here.
at 22. So I would say 24,
Okay.
26 are the middle of the road. If you feel brave, you can try 22.
I got a lot of like 30 like that I haven't used for anything.
Yeah, I would just make sure that it's not going to like break.
Yeah.
It shouldn't if it's artistic wire, that's for sure. But that's thin, and that's what like needle tatting people use and crocheters use that. So I would say 24. And I just kind of don't want you putting wire on your wood looms.
Okay, I won't. But it feels like if you have that small gauge wire that you could do it on the blue loom very easily. It's going to sit right in those grooves.
This was made on the blue loom. This was made on the blue loom. So, if it's a 28 gauge, you can, I mean, and this is 28, what I have, 26, and it's super, super fine. So like, maybe I would get brave and try it on the pocket loom. I don't know. I just think that artistic wire and the original looms are best.
Okay. Yeah.
Because not for nothing, also, it's kind of like the project that you're making too. Like you really have to think about why you're using the certain materials on your project.
Yeah.
Why am I using wire?
Going for?
Yeah.
What are you going
for? This was one of the Creative Soul projects, and I wanted to just show like this really cool, sturdy, funky piece.
Like a framed.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's another piece in the book that was with wire. So I just feel best if it's on the blue jewel looms versus the wood loom.
Okay. All right. I have a few more, but I got to slide over because I forgot one brand. So let me grab. Okay. I got two. Hi. I got two kinds of beading wire. So bead-along beading wire, or like a soft flex. This is a colorful, this is a metallic. What about beading wire?
Right. So I have played around with it a little bit. Again, it's a little bit more high end.
Yeah.
I think it has its purpose. With that said, I know that Trisha from, Trisha, our dear friend Trisha, she actually used the beading wire in a project and knocked it out of the park. Like it was really, really pretty. And the cool thing with that is that you can then take it up a notch and use crimping techniques, like pre-stringing the beads, crimping, and then you have like a floating bracelet, right? So it's a whole different level of, but if I'm not mistaken, the price point on that.
Yeah. But you could do so all of the companies do more of an so the Econoflex from Softflex, and then you could use a 7-strand from Beadlon. So maybe that's your, sort of test run, is using something that's a little more economical, that is still a beading wire. And sometimes you find some random weird brand like at a garage sale, and you could play around with that too. That same yard sale where you found the yarn, you might find some cheap beading wire too. You never know.
Yeah, no, there's all kinds of opportunities for savings. That's for sure. If you dig deep enough.
All right. I'm going to generalize because so everybody knows what stretch cord is, like your stretch magic. And then I've got this funky, colorful stretch cord. This was also from a craft store, really stretchy. So I could see this as fun, like accent, this kind of thing, accenting, more weaving. But have you ever warped with stretch cord, like a stretchy cord?
So you know who first played around with that is Christian from JTV when she was on Julie. Yeah. So
He's amazing.
she's a
genius.
Hands down. Yes. Jewelry genius. And so I think it's an interesting idea for sure to use it. Again, you're kind of trying to work with a material that's stretchy, and you're always trying to make your warps with the most tautness, like, to make it play like a little guitar. So,
counterintuitive to use a stretchy cord.
Yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive for sure. So I'm not taking it off the table by any means, and it's not non-abrasive. So like you could definitely play around with it on your wood looms because it's not going to, probably not going to hurt anything. But I think I'm not against it.
You're not putting an X through it.
I'm not putting an X through it. No.
Okay. Two more. One we've kind of talked about, but what about embroidery thread? Like I used that as a little bit of an accent on a piece that I made. It was a fail. I didn't warp with it, but I wondered, because it's also it's very much loosey-goosey, like our twine kind of, very loosey-goosey. And it's multiple fibers and they don't necessarily always stay together really well.
Yeah.
Especially if it's not a high quality embroidery thread. So just wondering, just curious.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is like to play around with it on the tiny looms, right? Like on the pocket loom or the earring loom, because it could be interesting on the earring loom. Again, you're not going to see it because, but if you have some and you're trying to do something on a budget, it's probably cost. It's a good cost. I'm personally not going to choose to warp with it because I think it's too flimsy. But would I grab some if I needed something to teach with or to do my wefts with on a smaller project? Probably. I mean,
there's 1,000 million colors. So that's another bonus for the weaving part of it.
Million colors.
Okay. Last one.
Okay.
You touched on it. Fabric. So we talked about denim.
Oh yeah.
I have this vision, and I did buy all of the things, and I'm still going to do it, so I don't want to share it. But it's fabric that I feel like I need to wash a lot to get it kind of loosened up because it's out of the package was somewhat stiff. So fabric in general, like I know I need to probably cut some strips of my fabric.
For sure.
What does that look like? I mean, do you have a project that you've done in the past that you can point to, like a class or anything that you did?
I do. And again, let me just peek over here.
I mean, we can always share it later, but I just, that is a curiosity to me. I know I can weave it, but to weft it I'm so curious, or to warp it, I'm so curious about.
Yeah.
So curious.
Well, that piece is not coming forward, but of course the piece I was looking for. So this was warping with the leather, and it was a great class because it really challenged the creative soul community to learn a new technique and be successful. So this is with the denim, but it's woven, so I wove, this is hemp cord. But darn it, I know in the Jewel Loom Inspirations book there's a project with that. Again, I would keep the rod in the loom, I would get it around the back button as best as I could. I would probably even pull out my blue painter's tape.
Oh, and tape it down.
Tape it down to the back, so like, just visualize instead of hemp cord, it's all denim and it's really big and chunky. So you're going to have to like use some painter's tape and then just warp with it like you normally would. Yeah.
Or the silver silk loom, I would think might be good for something like that. Or is that
it could, if you wanted to make the strips even thinner or to bunch them up and, oh my gosh, there's so many possibilities because you can sew into it. Like, like I sewed in all of these gorgeous beads into this bracelet. Yeah.
That's just so, it's just so bohemian and fabulous. And there's something about the fabric and the use of different kinds of fabric. So I have one more, and this one's for Joan.
Okay. Okay.
Pantyhose? Pantyhose?
Pantyhose. Yeah. Who did she said that I mentioned that? I don't remember saying you could weave with pantyhose. Oh my God. That is so funny. I mean, I think as long, I don't know, they would run. Wouldn't they run?
I would think so. But I guess run. Like you stretch it, like maybe if you just stretch it really thin. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it would kind of be like the stretch cord concept. Like, could you get it to be taut enough that it would be a good foundation?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I had to ask. Because Joan.
For sure. No, I know. And she's actually checked out already because she's like, I gotta go at 8.
Sorry, I'm keeping all my questions.
She has to party early, but God bless her for showing up because she's on the East Coast timeline. So,
I think I asked everything I was thinking about. Like, I know there's probably more that folks have thought of themselves, but those are just some of the things that I was thinking about. And now I'm actually inspired. Like some of these things I wasn't thinking I should try, but maybe a few of them I might try.
I really think what it comes back to is if you are a beginner and you've not even made anything yet, because this is a lot of information, right? So again, I'll direct you back to the small entry-level baby jewel loom. You get a pack of cord or something from your local shop, and you practice warping and weaving, and you just get that down. And then I think that the next step from there is that you're warping your original jewel loom with hemp cord. You're doing the beadwork, a single hole bead, and you're making one of the most basic bracelet projects, because then it's really easy to add, a button, a wood button, and call it a day. From there, I think that you will intuitively grow into all of these other different ideas. And really, at the end of the day, I feel like what you choose for your warps is like, what are you doing? If you're making jewelry like Jewels, I'm pumping it out for a boutique.
Yeah, craft fair.
Right. Or I'm making gifts, like, there's just going to be some standard warping procedures. The Beetle on Wildfire is my base, and I'm weaving stuff in, or I'm using hemp cord by Hemptique for my warps, and I'm, weaving in all of my gorgeous ribbons. But then when you get into the other looms, like the rooted loom, the sun weavers, and you start doing, and even the silver silk loom, when you start storytelling, when you start weaving because you're going to tell a story, then I think so many of the things that we talked about like come into play, because the bigger looms, like the rooted loom, just lends itself to all of this fun stuff. So yeah. But again, I'm just going to go back to, if it ain't moving, it's fair game. Like, because I have this visual of like, could I somehow, and this is crazy, could I somehow get grass, like the plant, you know, the big grassy plants.
Yeah, yeah.
I know. Like,
I
could
think I think I like blacked out for a minute. Like that is an awesome idea.
yeah. So
I dare you.
I fantasize about.
I dare you. I dare you to do that. I dare you.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would be a very interesting base, and I'm not exactly sure how to preserve it. I think definitely using it for my wefts, my weave, you know, my weaving part could be interesting. But yeah.
There are people that make baskets, woven baskets out of that stuff. So
Why
who
not?
says it has to be in a basket shape?
That's why I'm just like, every time I see a piece of a grass plant, I'm like, oh, keep walking.
You're yanking it out of the neighbor's yard.
Your sister's at home. Yeah, don't go to the plant store and start cutting grass. But
big trimmers.
I think that there's always a place for our, you know, very streamlined, basic jewelry making. We're trying to accomplish whatever our brand, our collection might look like. And I use those words whether I'm making it for as a hobbyist or professional, like it's your style. So, you know, and all the jewel looms kind of take you into a different expression.
Yeah. Yeah. And it all, everything together, the loom, the warps, and whatever you're weaving with, all put together is your story.
It's such a big part of your story. Such a big part. Everything that we do. So for me, weaving is all about storytelling. Even, you know, this bracelet has a story, right? You know, this bracelet reminds me of when I was able to empower all of my students in the Creative Soul, you know, monthly subscription to say, you know what, we're going to go wide and we're going to warp with leather, and you're going to have to practice. And this is not the project where you're going to be like, you know, and everyone was successful. I don't believe I had to send out any more leather to anyone.
That's amazing.
You know, and just everything is an expression that I do. Like one way or the other, something about wherever I'm at in that moment, whatever I'm desiring. And that's what I feel like weaving is all about.
Yeah.
It really is.
And I think when I sit down, I have to be ready for the story. Like I have to be ready to put the story together. Yeah. Sometimes if you want to make something fast, sometimes you can't tell the story fast. So
it's perfect for that.
Yeah. So, you know, but I think it's so exciting to think about all of the possibilities of what you can do. And maybe today somebody's going to say, you know what, I'm going to try the twine, or I'm going to try the, you know, whatever that they saw us talk about.
I mean, we go from hat bands to funky earrings to super high-end materials to making bougie lamps.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's just like a big story, everything. And to your point again, sometimes we're just making a bracelet, whatever, but we're pouring our heart and soul into it. Yeah. And it's, you know, there's moments in every piece where you just chill out.
Yeah. I like to leave a little bit of me in everything I make. So
and with weaving, you do.
It all comes from my heart anyways. So like these, you invest, I think you invest more in this kind of technique because it's a very Zen thing too. It's just so great to just move that material back and forth. Oh, it's wonderful.
It's like, it's super slow Zumba. Yeah, it is. And it's so many comments about that, like how it just helps people to chill out.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm all about it.
I'm down. All right. So we're getting a lot of really positive comments and I love that. And I love that this is so helpful. And if there's something else that comes to mind that, you want answers to, please ask us, let us know. I know we talked about a lot of different things, and I would just say try it. Like, it's not going to hurt anything, just I say that, and in the next breath, I'm just always going to say, but, caution on your wood looms to make sure that you're not using towing chain.
That might not be good.
Yeah, towing chain. That's not good.
It wouldn't be good. Yeah.
That's not going to be good. So, but Deb, I appreciate you so much. And I'm so grateful that from that moment that we found each other,
Yes.
What hall were we in?
I know we were at I think it was the Gem Mall. I think it was the Gem Mall tent at GL&W.
And I only went over there because I was trying to find Ani from Jewel Tool.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
we both found her.
And we found her, and then we found each other. And so it all worked out. And I'm so grateful for you. And so anything that we should tell everybody where to find you coming up, like what's going on this weekend?
You can find me Monday morning at artbeads.com/live. I have my Monday show on Artbeads. So every Monday morning I do a little designing, and we do a little shopping while we design. I've got a couple things coming up next week, but this time of day but I always know Monday morning, that's where I'm definitely going to be. But you can find me on all the socials, and hopefully we can come up with another something to share with folks.
I'm totally in. I'm all down for it. We're definitely going to do this again. So thank you so much. We appreciate you. We love you. And thank you for bringing, I am wow, you brought a lot. That is so great. So great. All right. Lots of love coming to both of us. We love our community so much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know, all of you delicious people. Love you, Danielle and Sandra, and all of our peeps. Lori. That's so cool. Lori thinks that she might have bought the same funky yarn, so that's fun.
Oh my gosh. I would love to see what she could do with it too. That would be fun.
She's a phenomenal designer herself. So, as so many of our community members are just so good. So bye, Melissa. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to leave me comments, and for Deb, if you have any, we're really good about responding to that. And, you can always share, but this is a part of both of our businesses being on the YouTube. So it really, really helps when you subscribe and you like and you comment and you share and you show love, because this is part of our jam, and we're so grateful, so incredibly grateful. So see you all next Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, will be the Sassy Fringe earrings, the bonus to the Creative Soul subscription box that Danielle designed. And that's going to be, it's ready to go. So next Thursday, that's what we'll have going on. So until then, see you guys.
Bye, then.